Avery Chen navigated the narrow alleys of Palimgrad with her hood pulled low over her forehead. Daylight was fading, replaced by a gradation of neon lights in every color imaginable, painting the wet pavement in carbonated bursts of pink, green, and violet. The city's silhouette loomed in the distance, a glimmer of modern towers set against a sky tinged with drifting haze. She passed a billboard featuring an ad for a dream therapy center, ironically proclaiming, "Better sleep, better life." It was one of countless signs that teased at solutions for insomnia, a plague that had overtaken the city, leaving its citizens hollow-eyed and desperate. The nightmares had been hitting Palingrad's populace in waves. This was no ordinary restlessness, but the eerie aftermath of dreams stolen. Victims awoke with no memory of what they'd dreamed. All they knew was they were exhausted beyond measure, unable to find proper rest, no matter how many hours they spent in bed. Rumors whispered through shadowy corridors of a crime syndicate that harvested these stolen dreams. A commodity with some hidden power or value. At first, Avery hadn't believed it. She considered it just another urban legend, one of the many ephemeral stories swirling around the city's underbelly. But recent cases had made it inescapably clear. The dream thieves were real. Her official job title was Investigative Retrieval Specialist, a polite way of calling her a bounty hunter who specialized in supernatural crimes. She had no illusions about the city's underworld. Palingrad was riddled with illusions and half-truths, roamed by creatures that were never quite human nor entirely monstrous. If she had a motto, it would be that every rumor in Palingrad had at least a kernel of truth. She ducked into a small noodle joint tucked between a neon sign for astro readings and a dingy storefront dedicated to nightly escapades. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of soy sauce and ginger. Behind the counter stood Ramon, an old friend who specialized in gathering intel for people like Avery. He was a slight man, quick-witted and always impeccably dressed, in a dark blazer despite the rainy neon nights. "You're late," he said softly, as he dumped fresh noodles into the steaming broth. His voice was husky, as though weighed down by secrets. "I was expecting you an hour ago." Avery offered a quick smile. "Couldn't be helped. Got stuck tailing a suspect who turned out to be a run-of-the-mill drug dealer, not a dream thief." "Tell me you have something more promising." Ramon glanced around warily, checking that nobody else was listening. Though this was a public establishment, there were few customers. A woman hunched over her soup in the corner, a man nodding off at another table. "You ever heard of the club called Lucid Labyrinth? Word is, it's run by someone with the necessary connections." He ladled broth into a bowl, placed it in front of Avery, and lowered his voice. "It's said to be a front for dream trafficking." Avery nodded as she sampled the broth. "Any leads on the ringleader?" He shrugged. "Only rumors. They call the group the Night Syndicate, though no one dares speak their name above a whisper. Security is rumored to be tight. Nobody gets in without an invitation or a serious bribe. Dreams fetch a high price, you know. There's power in them." His gaze flicked toward the door, and he gave a minute jerk of the head. A shadowy figure stood at the threshold, scanning the interior before slipping down the alley. "Thanks," Avery whispered, pushing a few bills across the counter. Tucking her hood up, she stole back outside. She already knew the general location of Lucid Labyrinth, somewhere deep in the entertainment district. It wasn't on any official map, but if you listened closely enough, you could follow the rumor trail. She braced herself for what came next. Infiltration. Neon signs glowed like restless spirits overhead as she walked. Street vendors hawked everything from exotic potions to black market charms. Holographic projectors advertised time reversal spells, 20% off, luring gullible bystanders while the more cynical just walked on by. Hooded figures meandered through the crowds. Motorcycles revved in the distance, their engines echoing along the metal walls of towering high-rises. The overwhelming glow of city lights cast elongated shadows, creating a kaleidoscope effect. She knew a broker who operated in a seedy section of the district, a woman named Helena, who specialized in forging both mundane and arcane documents. Helena's storefront masqueraded as an antique bookstore, shelves stacked with volumes on obscure topics, grimoires, lost alchemical tomes, and half-baked conspiracy theories. Avery pushed open the door, a bell tinkling overhead. The faint smell of dusty paper hung in the air. Helena peered at her from behind a glass counter. "Avery Chen? Back in the thick of it, I see?" Her voice was soft, but carried condescension that couldn't be missed. "Let me guess, you need access to a certain high-security establishment." "As quickly as possible," Avery answered, drawing in a breath. "Something that'll get me past an invite-only door." Helena sighed, as if Avery had asked for the world. "Forging illusions so they fool the magical wards is expensive. But I can do it. You have the funds?" Avery tapped the side of her belt bag. "We can negotiate." It took an hour and a chunk of Avery's discretionary budget, but Helena never disappointed. Avery walked out of the bookstore with an intricate pass forged from shimmering vellum. It read like an invitation to a private event at Lucid Labyrinth, complete with codes that would hopefully bypass both electronic and mystical scans. She just hoped the illusions held. Under the glare of neon blues and pinks, Avery arrived at a warehouse transformed into a nightclub facade, half submerged in the swirling lights of the entertainment district. The sign overhead was a simple, unblemished plaque that glowed with faint luminescence. This had to be Lucid Labyrinth. A line of people, dressed in outlandish urban fashions, snaked around the block, each waiting to be judged by a pair of gatekeepers who wore sunglasses despite the night. Their pupils glowed faintly with arcane energy, scanning each invite for authenticity. Avery joined the line, tugging her forged pass from the inner pocket of her jacket. She could feel a tingle of magic pulsating through it. The man guarding the door took the pass, placed it under a violet beam that hissed like a snake, then nodded curtly and handed it back. "Enjoy your night," he said, stepping aside. Avery exhaled and walked in. Inside, the club was a pulsating maze of strobe lights and labyrinthine corridors leading nowhere. The music crashed around her in electronic waves, throbbing with a beat that seemed almost alive, like some heartbeat from the underworld. Patches of shadow lingered despite the vibrant lasers, and Avery could sense eyes watching her from hidden alcoves. The crowd on the dance floor moved in hypnotic unison, as if entranced by the swirling lights overhead. She spied multiple archways branching off from the main dance floor. Most led to VIP lounges, lounge bars, or private chambers. Every so often, she saw a person slip through one of those archways and vanish. She needed one of those side rooms. That was where the illicit activity likely went down. However, she wasn't sure which tunnel to follow, especially with masked figures moving in and out so smoothly it was almost impossible to track them. Hugging the edges of the dance floor, Avery discreetly scanned the throng. She noticed a tall, broad-shouldered man with swirling tattoos that glowed under black light. Something about his posture screamed security. Another figure, draped in a hood of shimmering fabric, whispered something to him. Without warning, the hooded figure pointed at a hallway. The man nodded. They parted. Avery seized the opportunity and followed at a distance. She wound through a corridor lit only by flickering strips of neon embedded in the floor. From adjacent rooms came muffled sounds of conversation, moans of euphoria, or sometimes tortured screams. The walls seemed to pulse, alive with illusions. It was either a high-end hall of decadence or a twisted labyrinth designed to scramble your senses. Likely both. Halfway down, she slipped into a tiny alcove as the broad-shouldered man and hooded figure stopped at a door. The man knocked in an uneven pattern. A metal slot opened. Something inside flashed bright amber, and the door swung open. They stepped through, the door locking behind them. Tentatively, Avery approached the door. No keyhole, no handle. Some sort of magical sensor was embedded in the frame. She recalled Helena's words about illusions. Gently, she pressed her fingertip to the sensor, letting the aura from her forged pass swirl around her like invisible ink. The sensor glowed with suspicion, brightening in pulses as if scanning her deeper. Thoughts raced in her mind. Had Helena's illusions been strong enough? After a moment that felt like eternity, the sensor dimmed, and the door unlocked with a hiss. She stepped into a private chamber that felt designed for the negotiation and trafficking of fantasies. Velvet-lined walls were accented by more subdued lighting, casting shifting shadows. A semicircle of plush chairs surrounded a raised central platform. On the platform, a mirror-like device emanated a faint glow that pulsed in rhythm with the hush of conversation. 4 people were seated. The hooded figure she'd followed, a wiry woman with pale hair, a man with gold-rimmed spectacles, and the imposing figure from the corridor. They each gazed at Avery with different expressions. Surprise, irritation, and something else she couldn't quite name. The woman with pale hair spoke first. "Who are you?" Avery managed a half-smile. "Someone who wants to make a deal." It was the best she had on short notice. The 4 individuals glanced at one another. The wiry woman's lip curled, and she gestured for Avery to come closer. In the center of the platform, the mirror-like device flickered. On its surface played out faint images, swirling candies of color, nebulous shapes as intangible as clouds. They appeared to be captured remnants, excerpts of stolen dreams. Some flickered with bright reds and pinks, as if full of suppressed desires. Others churned with black smoke, nightmares to be sold to those with darker appetites. "Who's your supplier?" demanded the pale-haired woman, tapping her nails on the arm of the chair in a rhythmic staccato. Avery shrugged, trying to feign aloofness. "Local, independent. Said this was the place for higher-level trades. Or is that rumor untrue?" "You have a sample?" asked the man with gold-rimmed spectacles, pushing them higher on his nose. "I wasn't sure if I'd need it tonight," she replied. "But I'm ready to purchase." Silence stretched as the group weighed her words. Finally, the hooded figure spoke, voice deep and resonant, laced with subtle power. "We seldom broker with newcomers. The supply we handle is delicate. Moon eggs, illusions, nightmares, fantasies, entire dreamscapes. You must provide references." Her mind scrambled. If she couldn't prove her authenticity, she was finished. But something told her stalling might buy her time. "I can't reveal my reference right now," Avery said, injecting a note of caution. "I'm aware of the Night Syndicate's reputation. That's why I came personally. I want to see the entire operation before I invest." Those words scattered tension across the room. The mention of the Night Syndicate was taboo in these circles, but it was clear from the sharp intakes of breath that she'd struck a nerve. The big man tensed, and Avery sensed the moment before he lunged. She pivoted, stepping back, but he grabbed her wrist. She twisted free just enough to keep from being locked in place. Her focus sharpened, an invisible force brushed at the edges of her mind, a mental intrusion. "Get out!" she hissed at the hooded figure, who appeared to be the psychic. She reached into her belt bag and pulled out a small crystal disc, pressing a button that unleashed a flash of disorienting light. Everyone reeled, momentarily dazed, and Avery seized the opportunity to break away, rounding on them with reflexes honed by years of supernatural bounties. The door behind her slid open, and Avery darted through into another corridor. The alarm erupted, blasting an ear-splitting klaxon that made the walls vibrate. 3 security personnel rushed in from the opposite end, brandishing suppressors with runic etchings. Gritting her teeth, Avery sprinted back the way she'd come, weaving through the labyrinth of hallways as the swirling lights turned from playful neon to ominous red. She half expected illusions to block her path, a labyrinth that physically reshaped itself. Instead, she soon found herself on a small metal walkway overlooking a bizarre spectacle. Below, across a wide expanse, was a factory-like setup with glass chambers. Inside each chamber lay a person asleep, tethered to arcane machines that glowed with dream extraction spells. The air hummed with an otherworldly vibration, and she watched in horror as shimmering filaments Dream essence was siphoned from the sleeping forms and contained in vile jars. Workers in lab coats moved briskly among the pods, checking monitors and adjusting dials. So it was true. The Dream Syndicate was harvesting their victims en masse, draining them of rest and imagination. Avery's heart hammered. She remembered the countless bleary-eyed insomniacs in the city, desperate for relief. Now she saw the mechanism behind it, the kind of monstrous trade that commanded a high price. She took a moment for her breath to steady. This was the evidence she needed. But how could she dismantle such a massive operation alone? A voice echoed from across the walkway. "Stop where you are!" A guard brandished a weapon, the barrel rotating with arcane runes. Avery dropped to the ground as a bolt of crackling energy sizzled over her head. On instinct, she rolled, pressed another crystal disc into the metal grating, and dashed away. A half-second later, the disc exploded in a brilliant burst of light and concussive force. The guard was momentarily thrown off balance, but more were coming. She had no time to linger. Her top priority was to escape and expose the operation, yet guilt clenched her stomach at the thought of leaving those poor souls behind. She tried to reassure herself she'd come back. First, she had to alert the city's clandestine authorities, those who believed in the darkness hiding behind neon lights. She turned down a side corridor, ignoring the wail of alarms that chased her footsteps. The labyrinth twisted and turned in a dizzying pattern, but eventually she found a service elevator. She stabbed the button. Not fast enough. Two guards stormed around the corner. One flicked his hand, releasing a ball of fire that roared down the corridor. Avery flattened herself against the metal wall, the flames licking dangerously close to her jacket. The elevator doors slid open just in time. She threw herself inside and slapped the control panel. The doors sealed, cutting off the next volley of fire. As she descended, she stared at the flickering overhead light, her heartbeat pounding. She realized her hands were shaking. She took a moment to center herself, replaying the images of that laboratory in her mind, dreams stored in jars. Parted from their human host, she attempted to quell the sense of helplessness rising within her. It was in her nature to intervene, but she had to be strategic. When the doors opened at the ground level, Avery slipped out into a cramped hallway that ended in a private exit. She shoved open the exit door and stumbled into an alley. Rain greeted her, warm and heavy, as if the city itself was trying to wash away all sins. Her pulse still throbbed as she melted into the neon jungle, blending into the throng of night owls and hapless dreamers. She had the proof she needed to blow this operation wide open. Visual confirmation, even if no physical evidence was in her grasp yet. She made her way back to Ramon's humble noodle shop, pushing through the door, breathless and drenched. It was well past midnight, and the place was nearly empty. Ramon glanced up, scooping noodles into a takeout bowl, eyes widening when he saw the state she was in. "You find what you were looking for?" he asked, worry plain on his face. She nodded, voice hoarse. "They're draining people's dreams by the hundreds. They have a hidden research lab in a private area beneath that club. I need help bringing them down." He handed her a towel. "I'm not surprised. That's the rumor I've been hearing from all corners of the city in recent weeks. But is it just the club, or is someone else behind this?" Avery shrugged wearily. "I suspect there's a hierarchy, maybe a single head or a small council controlling the distribution. They've got advanced spells and technology woven together, so there's serious money and power behind it." Ramon pursed his lips. "Sounds big. You'll have to mount a coordinated raid. The city council won't approve any official action, though they're compromised. We need a different angle. It'll have to be freelance. I know a few folks who'd be willing to undertake an illicit rescue mission for the right cause, but even then, infiltration will be tricky." She dabbed rain from her forehead. "Those dreamers in the pods looked half dead, Ramon. They can't last much longer like that." He set down the takeout carton and crossed his arms, eyes resolute. "I'll tap my network. You'll need muscle, magic users, maybe a few good hackers to cut power or scramble illusions. Even if we can't get official city help, we can rally support. People have had enough. Sleepless nights are turning the city desperate. A shiver ran through her. As strong as she was, the notion of tackling this entire syndicate with a ragtag force felt daunting, yet she also felt a wave of determination ignite inside her. This was bigger than any bounty. It was about restoring dreams, the rawest form of hope. She offered Ramon a grateful nod. Let's do it. They set to work drafting a plan over steaming bowls of noodles. She told him every detail, from the labyrinthine corridors to the arcane scanners, making notes on a worn tablet. The hush of the night outside felt heavier than usual, filled with the unspoken tension of a city in crisis. It was almost 3 in the morning when they finalized a rough strategy. That's the blueprint, Avery said, tapping the screen. We blow the main power grid that fuels their arcane extraction, rescue as many sleepers as we can, and gather evidence. If we manage to snag a big fish someone high up in the chain, so much the better. Ramon drummed his fingers on the counter. We'll need an exit plan. They'll have reinforcements waiting. We'll figure it out, she replied, though her voice sounded more confident than she felt. If we succeed, we expose them. The city will be forced to do something. Prosecute, regulate illusions, whatever it takes to end the nightmare. Quite suddenly, the shop's door opened with a squeak. Both turned, hearts jumping. But it was only a lone customer, hair plastered to the side of their face by the rain, looking more exhausted than menacing. The person slumped onto a stool, scanning the menu blearily. Ramon exhaled, standing to greet them, and Avery relaxed slightly. She took one last sip of her broth before she rose from the stool. Got to make some calls, she told Ramon, motioning to the tablet with the plan. I'll get everything ready. We move fast. We can't give the syndicate time to relocate. He nodded. Stay safe out there. Word is these thieves have eyes everywhere. Outside, dawn stretched across the sky. Bright pinks and blues battled the neon glow that refused to concede. Avery pulled her hood back over her head, feeling the electricity of the city wind through her veins. She stepped out into the pale daylight, the hum of traffic and the patter of steady rain her constant soundtrack. As she made her way through the waking streets, she caught sight of countless people trudging to work, dark circles under their eyes, shoulders slumped. Her heart wrenched with empathy. These sleepless faces were each a testament to the syndicate's cruelty. And though they might not know it yet, they were counting on her. Countless afflicted souls, robbed of the simple human solace of a good night's sleep, pinned their hope on the chance that someone would fight back. Avery clenched her fists. It fueled her determination. Dreams were not a commodity to be bartered. They were life's intangible tapestry, a realm of possibility no one had the right to steal. Strange arcs of morning sunlight began to break through the drizzle, illuminating the city's skyscrapers. The swirling lights and illusions that dominated the nightlife were subdued in daylight, but the sinister presence remained. In that diffused glow, Palmgrad's secrets felt closer to the surface. Avery resolved that it was time to peel back the layers. She pressed on through the crowds, heading toward an unmarked building that served as a meeting spot for her allies' mavericks who lived on the fringes of the law, who believed in justice beyond the city's crumbling system. She knew the battles ahead would be fierce. The Night Syndicate was deeply entrenched, and the power they wielded went far beyond conventional weaponry. They'd harnessed something primal, weaving illusions to cloud the mind, siphoning dreams to fuel their empire. Yet Avery also knew the intangible spark of rebellion was lighting up the shadows, whispers of an uprising against the dream thieves. Standing at the threshold of her new headquarters, she paused, scanning the horizon. The city's neon might rest in the early morning light, but it would shine again come nightfall. By then she intended to have a plan in motion. One way or another, Palmgrad would not remain silent. Sleepless or not, the people yearned for freedom from the Night Syndicate's stifling veil. Determination raced through her veins, for she was done being on the defensive. Slipping inside, she prepared to assemble a crew that could challenge nightmares themselves. Tomorrow night, they would infiltrate the lucid labyrinth en masse, sabotage the dream harvesting operation, and free the dreamers locked in glass chambers. The city might remain bathed in neon illusions, but with each forceful step forward, Avery vowed to wrest power from the Syndicate's grasp. If they believed dreams were a resource to be plundered, they would learn that humanity's capacity to fight back surged strongest when hope, even the faintest flicker of it, was at stake. As the door closed behind her, a razor-thin smile curved her lips. The plan was dangerous and complicated, an underdog's gambit. But Avery was ready to chase the Syndicate across every twisted corridor and storm every hidden chamber. She would wrest back the stolen dreams and return them to their rightful owners. Or she'd break herself trying. So be it. One spark was often all it took to burn down an empire built on illusion, and Avery Chen, fueled by the desperate hope of a sleepless city, intended to be that spark.